as such. We've seen him for the last 3 years play for the Wolfpack. I think he's got the quality to be a Super League player. So I've put him as a sort of rising star because he's the player who's never played at the top level before, and he's coming through and will be playing at the top level. And Andy Ackers would be the other one who fits in that mould as well. I'm generally a fan of expansion done right and of the Wolfpack and all of that, but in terms of actually on the field, I've got them 10th because they're quite old and they lack both depth and cap room, which is why I can't see them damaging the top 5 this season. But I do see them as having a positive impact on the competition, and I really don't want them to go down. I want them to build from here. And finishing 10th, I think, would give them the opportunity to build from here. People aren't going to be dissuaded from joining the Wolfpack or being part of the Wolfpack going forward, either as a fan or a player or anything else, or a sponsor or anything, just because they might finish in the bottom third of the table in their first Super League season. So I don't see them challenging the top half of the table, though, unfortunately. Sorry all those Toronto fans, and hopefully we've gained a lot of US listeners, and we have a range of views on this show on the Toronto Wolfpack, but mine's generally positive. Do we have the salary cap dispensation before we move on from the Wolfpack, or do we save that for another time?
No, but let's move on.
Save that for another time. Excellent.
Yeah. So moving on to Wakefield Trinity. So yes, in terms of fan views, Jacques Cherry says winning, apparently.
Yeah, he expects them to be winning. Yeah.
Sounds all right.
Ron Heppelston expects a top 5 place.
Wow.
And the Wakey White says, think Wakey will be pushing for top 5, but just miss out. Unless we have a massive injury crisis again, then who knows?
Well, Alex Walker got injured in the friendly last night as we record, midweek in the week before the season started. So that's one down. If you read the web reports, they're struggling in a various amount of other positions for feet at Ashurst. Obviously, we know Ben Jones-Bishop, unfortunately through illness, is going to miss a large chunk of the season as well. We wish him all the best and hope he gets back. But are we already starting to see the sneaks of an injury crisis at Wakefield, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, even before that, I didn't see much that this squad had really taken much of a step change from last year. And I think our predictions kind of reflect that, don't they? And you just add injuries into the mix. And it doesn't really bode well, does it? As you say, I'm a big fan of Alex Walker, but injuries at this stage of the season are not a great sign. On paper, Westerman's a good signing, but he's the wrong side of 30 now, and we all know how dodgy his kneecaps are. So, so yeah, and again, he's a player who's been in and out of form, in recent years. Quite a bit of turnover at prop. Fafita, they were very reliant on him last year, probably increasingly so. But again, if there's an injury, cloud over him. Is Tom Johnston still okay? He hasn't injured himself again?
Isn't this his on year? So 20 tries, 3 hat-tricks during the season, and then next year would be his injured year again. That's the one bright spot, I think. He doesn't get injured 2 years in a row. Every other year.
No, just every other year. Managing his workload. In terms of rising star, I've picked. I think we're going to see a bit of a squad depth here, and I'd like to see Lee Kershaw, the oldest 20-year-old in the world, back in the team, if at all possible this year. But yeah, I'm not overall positive about them. I think they are. I have them 11th. I have them just a little bit better than KR this year, I'm afraid.
Sarah has them 11th as too. The listeners have them in 10th overall. Tim?
I had them a little bit better in 10th as well. Just bumbling around that bottom end.
I've gone 9th, but I think my difference reflects that I had the Wolfpack a bit lower than you two, possibly. And I was thinking, Chris Chester does a great job there, and whilst I don't think they quite have enough to be a contender this year, I still like the job he does patching that side up. I mean, too often there are patched up sides on the pitch that you feel like, but he does a great job with that. One thing I would say is they're well old.
And Lee Kershaw.
If you look, yeah. I mean, they've only got one player that's older than me, but you know, there's only 6 in Super League this year that are older than me. If you look at squad numbers, shirt allocated squad numbers from number 7 to number 15, all of those players are aged 30 or above, and in total, 12 of their 33-man squad, so more than a third of their squad are 30 or over. And then when you look at some of the players that aren't 30 or over yet, Tom Johnston, Bill Tupu, where am I looking? I don't know if Fafita is now 30, but those two in particular, coming off big injuries. So they've got a few players that, including some of the older players as well as some of the younger players, that are coming off bad injury records. So I just think they're going to lose too many games to injury again to be consistent enough to be in the top half, even though I'm the most optimistic for them. Warrington Wolves then. Let's find out what their fans expect from their side. We'll start with you rolling through these, Alan.
Yep, so Andy Clough says he hopes for entertainment.
Dominic De Rossa expects them to finally win the league.
John Knox says to finish in the top 6, too reliant on Widdop and Austin. I hope they don't pick up injuries or we could have a tough season.
John got that in a day or two before we found out that prediction. A day or two before we found out that Widdop was out for the first month or so of the season. So, God, we're cursing ourselves across the board here, aren't we?
Not half. Lee Whitnell says back-to-back Challenge Cups is a thing, so I think they will do that this season. As ever, I expect to be filled with hope in spring, only to have it crushed in the autumn.
Louis Banks says he expects more stability in the halves and more attacking flair. Be up there and fighting for trophies.
Yep, Mike Dodd says it's an even-numbered year, so we'll get to the grand final and lose again. Yeah, very good, Mike.
Pete from Oz says Widdop to dominate the injury in the treatment room anyway. Austin to thrive alongside Widdop.
And Tom Eckley says, with the lack of depth in the forwards, I'm expecting a rough run with injuries at some point. But with arguably the strongest spine in the league and not being favourites, another season of competing. Well, yeah, they competed last year. They finished 4th, but they won the cup. So what do we expect this year, Alan? I'll let you have first bang on Warrington.
Yeah, I think they kind of look quite even in terms of who they've gained and who they've lost, really. So for me, I see them having a good year, but ultimately not quite top of the league. I've got them finishing second.
Sarah went second and I went second as well. This thing about forwards, I know Tom will have sent it in before they signed Leilani Latu, who was a late signing addition to this squad, but
try saying that really quickly.
Well, we can say it really quickly. We can probably say it in nearly as quickly as his NRL career, because it feels like he hasn't played a game for 3 or 4 years. So they've got just a huge body there, haven't they? And I don't know what they've got with him, but he adds depth to their numbers, certainly. And I think Sammy Kabula, Louis Johnson, there's some young forwards there as well. I don't buy this lack in depth in the forwards, but what I do think they lack is proven quality depth if they face long-term injuries.
It's because they got rid of Kevin Brown.
Yeah, well, maybe the listener predictions of third reflects this more than what we've said so far, going second. For everyone so far. Tim, I'll let you have your say in a minute, but really they do have really star players in those pivots, in those spine positions. You know, they're starting 1, 6, 7 and 9 shirts. They're really good, those players in those shirts, but if they lose any 2 of them for, at the same time for any length of time, I mean, it'll hurt their chances, and that risk means that I think they will definitely be there or thereabouts, but possibly fall just short of winning silverware this year. Darryl Clark's the star man for me because they can afford to lose either Austin or Widdop for a long spell. Clark, I don't think they can.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he's going to be, pardon the pun, but pivotal to them, because I think he's just going to, so much of their hope is going to rest, and so much of the way they're going to play and the speed they generate and that they can then exploit is going to come from him. The one person I'd pick to actually make an impact this year is going to be Lufa Burrell. Once he's had a full pre-season, I think we could see something out of him. I think he will work his way into the side at some point.
But in the centres, in the back row, or maybe it's a kind of bench wild card.
I see him probably on the bench, coming into the back row and slotting in somewhere in the back three.
Because he's the heaviest player outside of the people you just say are their forward, their pack players. He's very tall, very built. Forward surely is where he's going to end up. And second row area, I don't think they've got great depth. So actually,
and at his age as well, where he's not going to be running around that much, because he's going to be running to a certain level, but he's not going to be someone who's going to be playing long spells, especially at the defensive side of centre as well. And that, I think, actually, in terms of positional awareness, centre is one of the hardest places to play from a defensive point of view, because you need to play in that unit week in, week out, to know where you fit in between your row and your winger, and when you're tucking in and when you're following. So I think it's probably actually easier to play at second row if you've converted across than at centre.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how he goes. I think it's an interesting wild card one to watch. One that I think someone like the Toronto Wolfpack will be keeping keen eye on to see what they can potentially do with bringing players in that won't count on the cap, that they can afford to pay for but don't have the room for on the salary cap. Right, so second across the board from us, but third from the listeners, but there or thereabouts for Warrington. Anything else from anyone else on Warrington?
Only to say, I picked another player from the spine in Ratchford as my star man, but as you said, they've got quality all up and down that team, so they'll be there or thereabouts, won't they?
Definitely so. Okay, well, let's move on to the final team to talk about. And in alphabetical order, of course, it's nothing about saving the best till last. We're going to talk about Wigan Warriors and what do their fans expect.
Sorry, we're saving. I thought we already did Saints.
What do the Wigan fans expect from their side this year? So we're going to start with Alex, who expects Wigan to be second. Succinct.
Yeah. Amanda Rankin expects silverware.
Is she going in hospitality? Andy Curry says very
Actually, I saw Amanda
at
the Liam Farrell testimonial, and she was in the comfy seats.
There we go. Yeah, you see. Andy Curry says very excited this year due to the progression that Lamb made in the second half of the season. If he can replicate that and get the right mix of new signings and youngsters, I can see silverware coming back to the Warriors.
Cameron Brooks said one or more pieces of silverware, top two close to Saints all season and winning the Super League.
Dan Barker-Gray says hopefully a better start than last year. I think that's a reasonable expectation. Interested to see which pair become the regular halfback combination.
Yep, Danny is looking forward to attacking rugby.
David Lawrenson expects excellence, disappointment, farce, excitement and controversy. Covered all bases. Well done, David.
Desert Badger, great name, says a more consistent...
Sounds like a code name for an operation or something, doesn't it?
Operation Desert Badger. A more consistent performance with better defence at the start and end of the year. Grand final and league winners, I suppose league leaders, runners up in the Challenge Cup. Blooding young players and Lockers to have a great season before his inevitable retirement. Best team in the land, allegedly.
John Cass says he expects the grand final, a cup quarter-final loss away. Yeah, John, probably at Warrington, let's face it.
Very specific.
That's what happens every year. Me and Cass go to Warrington to watch Wigan losing the cup.
Liam Tomlinson says win the triple.
Wow. And Matt says take time to gel but win Super League.
Oh wait, we should have mentioned that Liam Tomlinson is engaged to Georgia, the Cavs.